This video is an example of converting a written document into a comic. The document we'll be working with are the fire safety instructions of Boston University, and these have been copied directly from their public website. I will start the process by restructuring the information. As I read through the instructions, I notice that some of them are related to an actual emergency or evacuation situation, and I'm marking them in yellow, and others are related to general things one should do and know in preparation for a possible emergency. So what I'm doing here is an example of a thematic separation. It just so happens that in this particular document, this thematic division is very prominent. The next page shows what we've ended up with. So I've divided and reorganized the instructions into two parts, and these would be separate pages in my comic. In this video example, I'm going to concentrate on the actual emergency part, which is the lower part of the page here. I will now look at the chronological order and the order of importance. It seems to me that the first and most essential piece of information here is the steps one has to take to alert others in case they see smoke or fire, so I'm going to bring that bit first. This page shows the script we've ended up with for the comic. The last item on the list originally was know the outside rally point for your building, which I've rewritten as a step in the emergency protocol as head towards the outside rally point for your building. I will now use this script to make two separate comic strips. The first one with the 3 steps for alerting others, and the second one with the 4 remaining ones, which are also thematically connected. They describe what you must do whenever an alarm sounds. I will now start the illustration process by drawing my panels. As said, I will make 2 comic strips. The first one has 3 panels, and I'm making the third one larger on purpose because it will include content that I wish to visually emphasize. The second strip will have 4 panels. Now, you can also use more variation in the shapes of the panels, but I'm making these 4 the same size for a reason. And the reason is that I'm not completely sure of their order. So I want to be sure that they could be moved around in the final step of the comic creation process, which would be asking for content expert feedback. I will then go ahead and add headings to my comic. Headings make things easier for everyone. Thinking about the content in terms of headings helps me structure the thing better, and the headings will also make it easier for my readers to anticipate what they are about to read. I will then add the text of the comic. I know where I want it to go in the panels because I've given the panels some thought beforehand, and I've actually sketched a preliminary version of this before starting. The handwritten text here is simply to show you where and how I would include the text, but if this was a real commission, the text would not be handwritten in the image. It would be added afterwards with a text tool of an image editing software. The reason for this is that if the text needs to be edited during the feedback round, it is simply so much easier to do with digital tools. Or if one wants to use handwriting, I would recommend creating it as a separate image file that is then edited onto the illustrations. I now move on to doodling the illustrations. Now, if you are looking into producing a comic document, don't worry about the actual illustrations if you can't draw. You can simply doodle a rough draft and hire an illustrator to make a proper drawings based on that, or you can simply tell them what you'd like them to draw. Believe me, the drawing is the easy bit in the production. It's the structure that requires more thought and content expertise. For my 911 dialing illustration, I am going to want to use some color, mainly because the current symbol for calling is a green phone receiver. My colorblind reader might not be able to fully see the shape, but they would see the smartphone and the numbers on the screen at least. And if I was producing this type of a document for an international use, the phone numbers would obviously need to be internationalized. The human character I'm drawing is very simple. Almost disturbingly simple. They don't have hair, they don't have clothes, they barely have facial expressions. This character might be even too simple for an actual commission, but for the purposes of this simple example video, I wanted to create something only slightly more elaborate than a stick man. The visual appearance of the comic characters requires quite a bit of negotiation. What is it that we relate to the most? One of my panels talks about doors that may be hot, so I'm using the color red to indicate that. And at this stage, I decide that I will also color my alarm pull station red to create something of a color symmetry in the comic. One of my panels discusses a situation in which one encounters smoke during their evacuation. If this was an actual commission, I would definitely seek feedback on my smoke illustration. I do think it looks nice, but we would have to make sure that others understand it as smoke. The final panel mentions a rally point, and this here could well be a term a non-native English speaker is not familiar with. I'm saying that because I am a non-native English speaker and I had to look up the word when I first read this document. So I am using a bit more effort in trying to explain this for my reader. I'm drawing both the international symbol for a rally point as well as people gathering in a designated spot outside of a building. And including this symbol reminded me that I was supposed to include the international exit sign on one of the other panels, so I'll just throw that in there. And we are done with our first draft. This was the starting point, a list of things in random order, very hard to grasp at a quick glance. And here we have the same information as a comic. The next step in the process would be testing, both with target readers and with content experts, in this case, someone who knows the emergency procedure. Does this draft do justice to how things would actually look like? What would be the best order for the last 4 panels? And also, is there something I've completely missed? What I've created here is only a doodle version, but even this one is considerably easier to grasp and to remember than the original. That's why we often have emergency instructions as silly comics in airplanes, for example. We are more likely to look at them ahead of time, and we are more likely to remember what we're supposed to do in case of an emergency if we have already seen it.